I always like the topic when the word free is in the title. Of course, one has to be careful because free doesn't always mean what you might think. What's the joke? If it's free, then you are the product. Not in this case, I'm pretty sure.
In this case, it's pretty free.
All right, we're 12 o'clock straight up. So thank you. Take it away, John.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I'm John, the new director here at Fiske Planetarium. Thanks, Brianna, for that presentation. I think one thing that may have been noted, but just to reemphasize, a lot of the holistic learning SEL work we did was actually during COVID and was done remotely. So most of this has been tried out and tested online virtually with our groups. We have actually now reopened at Fiske. We reopened on July 2nd to the public, actually opened on June 16th to frontline workers and first responders with free shows, and then to the public on July 2nd. And we're excited in this coming fall and spring semesters to be able to offer our holistic dome experiences in person, as well as remotely. But clearly, coming out of COVID, we have had a lot of opportunities to do much more virtual programming, which is going to be useful for Fiske as we work with our rural partners throughout the state of Colorado and beyond. So trying to, again, silver linings. I think we've learned a lot about both holistic learning as well as virtual online holistic learning. What I wanted to share with you today was a set of, the other thing we've been doing during COVID times is Thor, who you can see down in the lower screen, our production manager at Fiske. We've been pretty active in continuing to produce films over the course of COVID. And so I just wanted to share with you the 4 or 5 free films that are going to be available, or will soon be available to your domes. So far to date, all of the products that we've produced have been free. They've been generated through grant funding from NASA and the National Science Foundation and other funding agencies. And really our main vision and goal is to really help support planetariums with limited financial resources to have content that you can show in your digital theaters. And so there'll be a plug at the very end about how to, again, get to those films. And I will share with you 2 clips of 2 of our newer productions. But please do stop me at any point if there are questions that you need clarification on. And then Thor and I will both field questions for the last 20 minutes or so, the last 10 minutes, the last 5 or 10 minutes of the half hour. With that, let me share my screen and go into presentation mode. And so, again, these are productions that are available through our FTP server. I wanted to first kind of give some background. Fiske, when we became a digital theater in 2013, became part of the NASA SciAct Science Activation Project back in 2015. And that allowed us to build a network of other domes that can download our products. And through our NASA Exploration SciAct Award, we produced these 8 videos that you see here, which are short films, 5 to 8 minute films around NASA missions and NASA science. And so you can't see this super well on the screen, but episodes 7 and 8 came out during COVID, which were about the TESS mission, looking for extrasolar planets. And then we also got Thor and Brianna and Tom Muncie, our sound engineer, onto Sophia to do full dome footage, 3D footage of the Sophia Stratospheric Observatory for Infrared Astronomy. And so those short films are available along with these other pieces that you see here on the Grace mission, on small sats and rocks on the moon, and the dawn of the Orion return to the moon. So those short films are available, and that's really how we got started in this pathway of providing films and content on our server that you see there at the bottom of this page. Unfortunately, we were not re-awarded funding for the second phase of SciAct 2.0. That was a competition that occurred in NASA a year and a half back. And so there was there was reshuffling of some of the portfolio in science activation. So we're no longer funded for explorations currently. We do have a ROSES proposal in that would continue this work, but with an emphasis on eclipses and occultations. There are several minor planet missions like Lucy, which is launching very shortly, that make use of occultations as a way of doing science. And occultations are in their own way related to eclipses, just different scales and stars and objects. And so if we're funded, we will continue the explorations series, but with focus on eclipses and occultations. But for now, we've pivoted and are focusing more on feature-length films to go along with these short films. And so through partnership with Ceres, which is a center on campus focused on environmental sciences, and the National Science Foundation, we've produced two 25-minute films that feature the Mosaic mission or the Mosaic expedition. Mosaic is the multidisciplinary drifting observatory for the study of Arctic climate. This is an icebreaker, the polar stern, that didn't break ice. It actually got embedded in ice. And so about a year ago, October of 2019, October 2019, the polar stern was rammed into an iceberg in the Arctic, and it actually floated in that iceberg for the next year. We were lucky enough to get funding with our partners and the National Science Foundation to place 2 graduate students aboard the polar stern for that year. And so we have some pretty amazing fold-on footage from 87 degrees north latitude, kind of the farthest north Arctic fold-on footage that we know of. And so we have 2 films that one of which is available currently, and one of which is premiering on August 27th of this year, which feature this really exciting Arctic exploration mission. The first film, Into the Polar Night, was made at the beginning of the year-long mission, and it really therefore features leg 1. There were supposed to be 5 legs of the mission. There were actually only 4 due to COVID. But we had a recent film studies graduate student aboard the leg 1 of the expedition. And our vision was that we would actually release this to the planetarium world while the mission was still going on, so you could show it in your theaters and promote and talk about Mosaic science while it was ongoing. And then we would have the second film come out at the end of the mission. Of course, COVID occurred after the launch of this mission or expedition. And so by the time we got to February and we're finishing the film around leg 1, all of our theaters were closed. And so this has been available since March of last year, that it features the kind of the beginning part of the expedition. The second film was produced, so this first film was produced by Amy Richmond, who both took the footage on the ship and then edited the story and edited the final production. The second episode or installment of Drifting North is another 25-minute film called Arctic Pulse. This was produced by Leanna Nixon, who's actually an education graduate student studying K-12 education, that is interested in how we do filmmaking for educational spaces, and especially in fold-up environments. And this takes footage for the entire year of Mosaic, and is been finished, but we are premiering it here at Fiske on August 27th in 3 weeks. And then we'll be releasing it on our FTP site that same week. So this will be available as of the end of this month. If it's okay, I was interested in sharing just a quick 4-minute clip of this film. Is that okay if I do that? I'm not sure if people would be interested in seeing just a brief snippet of this film. And so actually, since I can't see your faces, I'll come here and I got 1 thumbs up from John Young. So John, thank you. Thank you, Bo and John. And so we will now go ahead and watch just this is kind of 3 minutes into the film and kind of sets the context for Mosaic as a really exciting project to share with your audiences. So please wave or do something if you're not hearing or seeing what you think you're supposed to be hearing or seeing. But we'll watch this performance.
To live and thrive in the Arctic requires resilience and passion. For millennia, indigenous communities have been calling the Arctic home. They are the keepers of knowledge about the lands, ocean, and ice. For hundreds of years, the Arctic has been a magnet for scientists and explorers around the world, seeking to understand this vast, remote region.
Far north in the high Arctic, the ice is constantly changing and constantly in motion. In the dark winter months, sea ice grows and thickens, while in summer, warmth and sunlight melt it back. The seasonal growth and melt is like the pulse of the Arctic Ocean. But the Arctic's pulse is changing. The region's temperatures have increased faster than anywhere in the world, and it is one of the world's most rapidly changing environments. Arctic sea ice feels that change, and it responds.
How does the ice respond? And do those responses matter for people who live hundreds or thousands of miles away? That's where Mosaic comes in, the multidisciplinary drifting observatory for the study of Arctic climate. Inspired by great explorers of history like Norway's Fridtjof Nansen, Mosaic participants from more than 30 nations set out to conduct the world's largest and most complex Central Arctic research expedition. They capitalized on one key detail that Nansen had studied more than 125 years ago. Sea ice moves. Currents push and pull sea ice for thousands of miles across the Arctic Ocean, while the ice slowly thickens and splits, groans and moves with wind and waves. On board the German research icebreaker, Polarstern, the expedition team sailed north of the Siberian coast of Russia and froze the ship into the sea ice. The team's journey begins in Tromsø, Norway, with the Polarstern packed with science instruments, safety equipment, helicopters, food rations, and everything the team will need to endure the Arctic's harsh elements. They search for the perfect ice floe, a large sheet of frozen sea ice that will help them observe the Arctic climate system.
We're studying the Arctic atmosphere, sea ice, and ocean system, looking at the chemistry, the biology, the physics, and importantly, how they all interact, cutting across the whole system. And so this requires scientists that look at things like the atmosphere and clouds, or maybe they'll go take a water sample and analyze it in a laboratory, or maybe they'll go and take an ice core and look at the physical structure of the ice. All these pieces working together. To observe the Arctic climate, you have to be embedded in the middle of it. And sometimes it's cold, it's dark, it's windy, it's snowy. Your fingers get cold, your nose gets cold. Sometimes you have to be waist deep in water. All these challenges, but this is really what it takes to be there and observe what's happening in the Arctic system.
Once they found the perfect flow, they began setting up research sites just in time to capture the first season snowfall and to get one final glimpse of the sun as it sets into the polar night.
All right, so that's just a brief clip of what that film looks like. It's a 25-minute film, and what I'm most excited about with this film is that really Leanna and Amy, who are both, budding filmmakers, these are their first full-on productions, had really a great opportunity to, one, be on an amazing icebreaker with a team of 50 scientists, and then also really start to hone their craft and to become really expert filmmakers. It's a truly immersive experience that they both produced. And so kudos to Thor for all of the mentoring and support that he's provided. But then also just their work is pretty profound, and really excited to share it with you all. The second part of the presentation is going to shift away from the National Science Foundation and move a little bit over towards NASA supported films that we are releasing in the upcoming year. And this needs to go here, and this needs to be there. And so we have also been working on a new film that's going to be released on February 2nd, focusing on the Artemis mission. So Forward to the Moon is another 25-minute film that focuses on Artemis, the mission design of Artemis, the path of Artemis landing the first woman and the next man on the moon, and then also going beyond to Mars and using that as a springboard for human exploration of Mars. Currently, there is a 5-minute trailer that is available on our website that is a preview or a preview of this film. It's a scene that focuses mostly on the Orion capsule and how Orion is protecting the astronauts, and also focuses on the Farside Array, which is a radio telescope that Jack Burns here at the University of Colorado is hoping to work with Artemis to put onto the backside of the moon and study the dawn of the dark era of galaxy formation. And so if there's time, I'll share this video with you at the end of the presentation. But right now, the 5-minute trailer is available for your theaters, and then the full-length film will be released on February 2nd. We plan to premiere this year at Fiske and also at Chabot Science Center and Morrison Planetarium, although if you are from Chabot or Morrison, I haven't talked to you yet. So if you're on this call, I'm giving you a call soon. But this film was funded by NASA, by the Survey Centers, which are at NASA Ames, and by NESS, which is a Survey Center here at C. Boulder. And so we would like to premiere this in conjunction with the 80th anniversary of NASA Ames's formation back in the 40s at a gala event that's happening at Chabot Science Center. But again, we encourage you to download this and use this film when it's released in February. And then the kind of building off this same space in terms of space exploration and human exploration of space. We've also on our website released a free 5-minute piece that was developed by Felix and Paul called Space Explorers: The ISS Experience. We've had a partnership with Felix and Paul, which has full dome cameras, 3D cameras aboard the International Space Station. So they actually have over 200 hours of footage on the ISS in VR around the International Space Station experience. They have produced a full feature-length film around Space Explorers that actually needs to be licensed, but they agreed to share the 5-minute trailer of their experience on our network for free, and so that's available to be downloaded as well. And then you can clearly talk to them if you'd like to license the full feature-length film. I actually have more recently, and this is where I'm hoping to get some feedback from the community in this presentation. In just the last 2 weeks, in our conversations with Felix and Paul, they and this is confidential information, but I was told I could share it this morning. Felix and Paul is interested and in current conversations with NASA about getting a full dome camera onto the launch pad of Artemis 1 in November. Their hope is that if there is interest in the community, and if the technical arrangements can be worked out with the vendors who would be helping us to make this technologically feasible, to host a live stream, a 3D live stream into planetarium domes of the Artemis 1 launch. So their plan is to, if they can get the sponsorship from the sponsors that we were talking about today, and if they can get the approval from NASA, actually they have approval to be on the launch pad. It's just a matter of how far away from the launch pad where they would put it. that they're working with NASA on right now. And they're in conversation with OpenSpace and ENS and other vendors about getting the live stream feeds into domes. But the question for the community is, would we be interested in having access to a live stream 24 hours before the launch and through the launch? They thought a little bit about the fact that maybe the launch wouldn't launch on time. How would that work in terms of individuals, in terms of running programming at 6 a.m. and then having the launch not actually launch? And so they're also thinking about having an on-demand stream, like post-launch for the first 2 to 3 days while it's still current news, that you can still replay the broadcast of the actual launch. But this is a first step at what they're ultimately hoping could be free live streams of all of the launches of Artemis 1, 2, and 3. And so if they can work out the technical issues right now when there aren't humans aboard Artemis 1, would this be something that the community would be interested in, able to use for future Artemis launches? This is actually an ask that they gave me this morning before this call started. If this is something that you would be interested in, Olivier and Marie-Noelle have expressed interest in getting feedback from the community about, like, in pitching this to NASA, they need to show that the planetarium community is interested in this type of opportunity. And so if you want to shoot Olivier or Marie-Noelle an email, and I can put these in the chat, they're interested in building up, getting a sense of how much the community would like this opportunity. And we can talk more about that after we finish these slides. So then just to wrap up and save some time for questions, we have 2 more films as well. Through a National Science Foundation grant, we have a 25-minute film called Cosmic Mashups, Gravity, Galaxies, and Supermassive Black Holes. This is a film about galaxy mergers, and galaxy mergers as a main feeding mechanism for making black holes active and turning them into quasars. And so that film, I'll ask Thor when it's going to be released, but that's going to be this fall. We don't have an actual release date, but it's actually very, very close to being releasable. And then we have released another film called Climate Change in Our Backyard, which is 3 10-minute vignettes around the basic science of the greenhouse effect, kind of the climactic effects of the greenhouse effect, the anthropogenic greenhouse effect, and then solutions and ways that we can make progress and approaches in trying to address climate change. And then finally, we shared this at the last WAC conference last summer, but now that Fiske is reopened and serving audiences of 100 audience members, which is half of our capacity. We actually, just for context, we opened a capacity of 50 in early July. We raised that to 75 in mid-July, and we're now up to 100 audience members out of our 200-seat theater moving forward. We're doing that intentionally from the optics of making sure that we're ensuring that we have as safe of a space and theater as we can for our public audience members. But if you may remember that we had prepared to premiere a live musical called Voyagers on March 13th of 2020. And so we clearly didn't premiere that because we closed on March 13th of 2020. And so we're excited to have Sadie Bowman and Ricky Coates return to Fiske in October so that we can do the world debut of this live musical about the Voyager mission. And then Ricky and Sadie are part of a company called Math Theater that does STEAM theater. They travel around the country and the world, giving presentations and musicals and performances around Tesla, math, calculus, the musical. But they are interested in featuring and hosting live performances at theaters across the country and world of Voyagers. And again, this was made specifically for full domes. And so it comes with all of the dome masters that Fiske has produced. And Ricky and Sadie are phenomenal. And so if you're interested in a live performance at some point in the next 5 years, maybe even for the 50th anniversary of Voyagers, that's our last offering that we wanted to mention. This one is not free. So this is the one product so far, I guess, that I've shared that is not free. It is a matter of working out an arrangement with Ricky and Sadie to make sure that it's marketable and profitable for both you and for their company. With that, this is again our website, Fiske /Fiske-Productions. That is where you can get a free download from our server of, you can send in a request form for free downloads. And then we also do provide backend support if you're having trouble getting it sliced or getting it into your theater or your dome. So please don't hesitate to reach out to Thor and company so that we can make sure that you're having access to these films that we've been making. And I will now stop sharing and put some things in the chat. But I'll pause here and ask Thor if you have anything to add, and also take your questions.
No, I don't have much to add. I think you covered it really well. I think that, one thing I would, I mentioned in the chat is what's really unique about the Drifting North films is as far as I know, it's some of the only footage prepared for full dome theaters from the Arctic Circle that high. They actually did cross to the North Pole at one point before they came back. So it's a very rare footage. Fantastic films. Make sure you turn up the air conditioning in your theater. Really set the audience into a sensory experience. But yeah, we've been busy here, and we're trying to help the planetarium community out as much as we can. So we may in the future ask for letters of support for our future grants. So there's several other projects that we're also working on for the upcoming years. So we're hoping to keep everybody well supplied with footage for your planetarium.
Thank you, Thor. Thank you, John. Any other questions? So I posted a number of those links in the on the River chat.
Oh, so yeah, there was one question about the vignettes on climate change. Are you showing them? How are the audiences reacting to them? So we planned that original film to be a feature-length half-hour film, but we also recognize the need that those components of those vignettes can be, kind of extracted and presented within a classroom. So instead of covering all of the range of the film, that a teacher may come in and say, okay, I want to use that second section in my class today. So we kind of broke it into 3 10-minute sections, and then also tried to have it make sense as a full film. That is available. All of our productions are available once you register for the FTP. You can start downloading them directly. Even today, you'd have our films.
What I also wanted to add was that with regards to the live stream possibility with Felix and Paul, their vision is that will be a free product as well. So they're looking for sponsorship to fund the live stream. And then you would have access to the live stream without having to pay a cost for the delivery of that live stream. Again, this is all very tentative and very preliminary. They don't yet have official commitments of where they would have the camera and if they will have the technical support to do that live stream. But if you do have any thoughts or interests, please feel free to shoot me an email or to reach out to Olivier and Marie-Noël Gautier directly.
I noticed that that Arctic expedition, they said it went from Tromsø, Norway. It embarked from Tromsø, Norway. That also is the location of, I believe, the farthest north planetarium in the world. And I'm wondering if they would show that. They should probably show that.
We actually had a short trailer form before the first films were made. We made a little 5-minute trailer, and they actually premiered that in the Tromsø, Norway planetarium a day or two before they actually left on the mission. So it was all their schools came, and a lot of kids, and they made a big to-do. And I think they've already downloaded the first film, and the second film will be released here by the end of the month. So
great,
awesome.
I'm curious about what equipment they're using for filming up there.
We actually had quite a bit of Insta360 Pro cameras. So we use the 8K Pro cameras. We also use the Insta1X, the little tiny portable ones. One of the biggest challenges that we faced is that we had two people that knew what they were doing with the cameras, and everybody else was scientists and researchers that we were trying to finagle into putting a camera with them while they're out on the ice floe. So we didn't really know what footage we had until we received hard drives back about every 3 months. We would get a package of hard drives with unknown content, and so we had to ingest it and see what we have. But surprisingly, it's just an amazing variety of footage. You'll actually find underwater drone footage, you'll find aerial helicopters, you'll find, on the ice floe, on snowmobiles, in the total darkness. There's a huge variety of film techniques or film locations in both of those films in the Drifting North series.